Understanding Spiritual Awakening and Its Purpose by Ayan Farvar. Spiritual awakening is not about spirituality. It's about self-awareness. We are spiritual beings, and spiritual awakening is the only way we can become aware of that. Only through spiritual awakening we can notice the spiritual essence of our being and transform to our higher self. Hi, this is Ayan Farvar. I'm glad you're here. This channel is about self-realization and honoring our life purpose and meaning. If you're interested in these topics, please subscribe to stay connected. Your support is the foundation of this channel and encourages me to create more content in the future. Today, we want to focus on spiritual awakening. Spiritual awakening, as defined here, is a consciousness expanding process, a process that can lead to a superconscious awareness. We humans can experience life in two modes of awareness. One is an ordinary conscious awareness, centered around our personality. The other is a non-ordinary superconscious awareness. Spiritual awakening is the journey from one to the other, which involves the dissolution of ordinary conscious awareness experienced through our ego personality and the birth of superconscious awareness as our transpersonal self, which is also known as higher self, individuated self, or supersensible self. Because spiritual awakening is a consciousness expanding process, its experience can be unfamiliar and non-ordinary, simultaneously joyous and adventurous, but at times overwhelming or disorienting. The goal of this presentation is to raise your awareness about this process so you know when you're in it and can navigate it in best possible way. More specifically, we focus on the following topics: understanding superconscious awareness and transpersonal self, noticing different stages of spiritual awakening process, spiritual awakening and experience of spiritual content and energies, spiritual awakening and emergence of superconscious awareness, and best practices for navigating spiritual awakening process. Please note that the ideas presented here are based on my personal experience and understanding, but are partly inspired by ideas of Dr. Roberto Assagioli, a pioneer in the fields of humanistic and transpersonal psychology. In case you're interested in Dr. Assagioli's take on spiritual awakening, I'll leave a reference link in the description below. Spiritual awakening process is inherently subjective and unique to each individual. It can encompass any form of inner experiences, including but not limited to psychic experiences, religious or mystical experiences, shamanic experiences, and other transpersonal experiences. But regardless of how it comes about, spiritual awakening often leads to higher levels of self-awareness and a more expansive experience of life and reality. Resisting, blocking, or stopping spiritual awakening process may not always be the best choice because it can lead to psychological inner conflict and loss of meaning and motivation in life. Understanding superconscious awareness and transpersonal self. It is well known from depth psychology that our psyche has a conscious and an unconscious part. The conscious part of our psyche represents our ordinary view of self and how a so-called normal human being views and experiences life. Our ordinary conscious awareness is an awareness created by our mind about our personality, our look, our feelings, thoughts and beliefs, or our likes and dislikes. The focus of our ordinary conscious awareness is self-preservation, our comfort and self-gratification, our pursuit of personal ambition, and our control over all aspects of life. The unconscious part of our psyche, in contrast, contains information that our ordinary conscious mind is unaware of. These include spiritual essence of our being, disowned or suppressed parts of our personality, and other transpersonal content or spiritual knowledge. So there are many things about ourselves, especially the spiritual dimension of our being, that our conscious awareness knows nothing about. Ideally, we want to know everything about ourselves, discover who we truly are and where we came from, and what the main point of our life is. And the only way to find these answers is to access the unconscious part of our psyche and bring its content to awareness. That brings us to the definition of superconscious awareness and transpersonal or higher self, which is a state of awareness that has access to the content of the unconscious, and hence a superconscious level of awareness. If we consider the totality of our being as an iceberg, our ordinary conscious awareness is only the small mass of the iceberg above the surface of the water. The superconscious awareness is the totality of the iceberg. Also, in a more shamanic view, transpersonal self is a manifestation of our personal daimon, or guardian spirit, also referred to as our celestial twin. In fact, the ultimate goal of spiritual awakening process is our intuitive connection with our guardian spirit or celestial twin. Our transpersonal or higher self emerges once this connection is established. Noticing different stages of spiritual awakening process. At a high level, spiritual awakening happens in 3 stages. Stage 1 is about the dissolution of our operational belief in life. Dissolution of our operational belief means that everything our ordinary conscious mind knows about ourselves and life can no longer secure our emotional, psychological, or spiritual well-being, or give our life a sense of direction or meaning. Dissolution of our operational belief can be triggered by an existential crisis, loss of an emotional attachment, series of failures or bad luck, or simply a deep sense of void, as if something is missing from life. In this stage, we lose our interest in earthly pursuit of desires and experience the dark night of the soul. Stage 2 is about experience of spiritual content and energies. Unlike stage 1, where we find our soul stuck in a dark night, stage 2 brings some needed spiritual relief, as various spiritual content and energies emerge from the unconscious and claim some space in our mind. This emergence can be uplifting, but has its own challenges, especially if our conscious mind or personality is unable to provide this space. Our conscious mind can get overwhelmed by the emergence of spiritual content and tries to block them, or even worse, over-identify with them and get psychologically inflated or dysregulated. Stage 3 is about the emergence of superconscious awareness. In an ideal scenario, stage 2 leads to emergence of transpersonal or higher self and its superconscious awareness. This emergence brings a tremendous sense of bliss and meaning to life, almost like experiencing apotheosis and an exalting sense of rebirth into life. This usually leads to a total and alchemical transformation of personality. Among these stages, stage 2 and 3 are most important. In fact, the fate of spiritual awakening process, for better or for worse, depends on how one handles these stages. That said, let's focus a bit more on these two stages. Spiritual awakening and experience of spiritual content and energies. Stage 2 of spiritual awakening involves emergence of various spiritual contents and energies. This emergence can be gentle and orderly, for example, having a series of meaningful lucid dreams, or otherwise intense and unorderly, like sudden shamanic awakening or overwhelming eruption of spiritual content. These spiritual content and energies are inherently subjective and unique to each individual, but it would be useful to outline a few of them here. The following spiritual content and energies can emerge during spiritual awakening process. Various psychic and mediumistic experiences, for example, spirit communication or channeling. Experience of lucid and meaningful dreams, including frequent interconnected dreams. A deep sense of oneness and connection with all living beings, especially plants and animals. Frequent experience of highly improbable, synchronistic but meaningful events. Experience of psi phenomena such as precognition, extrasensory perception, and clairvoyance. An increased sense of curiosity and openness toward spiritual ideas and experiences. Experience of psychedelic or mind-manifesting altered state of consciousness, especially visions of religious figures or ethereal beings. And other spiritual experiences, including mystical, kundalini, and shamanic awakening. These experiences are consciousness expanding and prepare the psyche for the emergence of transpersonal and higher self and a superconscious level of awareness. However, the success or failure of this emergence depends on how our conscious mind or ego personality reacts to our spiritual experiences. Virtually in all cases, one of the following scenarios can happen. Our conscious mind or ego personality remains open and curious, creates room for our spiritual experiences, and allows our transpersonal or higher self to emerge. This is the ideal outcome of stage 2. Our conscious mind or ego personality resists or blocks our spiritual experiences, creating a psychological inner conflict or a state of spiritual limbo. In most optimistic scenario, this leads to loss of meaning and connection in life. This is not an ideal outcome of stage 2 and brings the spiritual awakening process to its halt. And lastly, our conscious mind or ego personality can over-identify with these spiritual experiences and becomes inflated or obsessed by them. This leads to emergence of a spiritually distorted and inflated ego personality. This is the worst outcome of stage 2 and derails the spiritual awakening process. As you can notice here, spiritual awakening can continue only if our conscious mind or ego personality is open and receptive to emergence of our transpersonal or higher self. Spiritual awakening and emergence of superconscious awareness. Emergence of superconscious awareness leads to a state of bliss and apotheosis. However, this is not the end of spiritual awakening process. The final stage of the process has to do with a total or alchemical transformation of our personality to bring it in full integration and alignment with our transpersonal or higher self. In other words, our ego personality needs to be reconfigured to resonate with our higher self. This is the final step as it forms the totality and wholeness of our being, where all personal and spiritual aspects of our being merge to unify in full harmony. C.G. Jung called this unification of personal and transpersonal self individuation, which means becoming individuated and whole. Spiritual awakening is not complete without transformation of personality, because otherwise our weaker parts of our personality can be spiritually inflated and misuse the power and insight of our higher self. Unfortunately, this is common downfall of spiritual awakening, when some awakened individuals or spiritual elders submit to temptations of their ego, get inflated, and start to misuse their wisdom for their own self-gratification and pursuit of power and control. In shamanism, shamans are divided in two categories of white shamans and black or dark shamans, who are also known as sorcerers. White shamans view their transpersonal self as the symbol of their daimon or chief guardian spirit. They only use its power and wisdom in service of their community and for healing or life-nourishing causes. Unfortunately, the dark shamans or sorcerers use their spiritual power and influence in service of their own personal gain and gratification. With power comes responsibility, with higher power comes higher responsibility, and spiritual power is no exception. Best practices for navigating spiritual awakening process. In closing, I would like to leave you with a set of best practices to make your spiritual awakening journey a positive and life-transforming experience. These are based on my personal experience and may not be relevant to all circumstances, but they're useful to notice and remember. During your spiritual experiences, keep your heart and mind open, and instead of questioning what you are experiencing or what's happening to you, contemplate on what insight that experience is meant to give you. No matter how euphoric or powerful your spiritual experiences are, avoid identifying with them. Instead, become an observer and appreciate these experiences, and be curious what they could mean to you. Remember that before the emergence of your transpersonal self, any form of identification with spiritual entities or energies can lead to distortion or inflation of your ego personality and diversion of your spiritual awakening process. Trust yourself and listen to your heart intuition in all circumstances and spiritual encounters. Trusting yourself and your heart makes you stay grounded and keeping you from being overwhelmed or disoriented by the intense energies. Listen to your heart and take a break when you need to, and re-engage only when your heart tells you. Remember that we are all spiritual beings having a human experience in this reality. In a way, spiritual awakening is our birthright. It is the highest form of self-awareness, because only through spiritual awakening process we can notice our spiritual nature and true essence of our being. Only through this process we awaken and merge with our transpersonal or higher self. If you have found this presentation inspiring, please like and share it with your like-minded friends. Please subscribe to my channel and share your thoughts and comments. For more information about myself and my life mentorship practice, please find my bio link in the description below. Blessings.